My name is Nigel Brown. I'm from Australia, from Melbourne. I've been living in Tainan since 2016. My background is in music and sound art, experimental music. In more recent years, have been making more and more works for gallery and museum context. I came from more of a performance background, so my interest was as a musician, becoming interested in different sounds, and that kind of led me down a path to thinking more about the role of listening in the world. Now listening is the way that I focus on experiencing the world around me, using those experiences. So the two works in this exhibition, one piece is actually an audio documentary that I produced in 2018, Taiwan International Documentary Festival. That work is really came out of my early experience being living in Tainan. When I moved to Tainan in 2016, I spent a lot of time just walking around the streets, trying to experience my new home. And one thing that really stood out to me that was outside of my usual experience in Australia was Jia Gongchang, these kind of small domestic factories. I was living in Zhongshichu in the center of Tainan. It's quite a feature of certain parts of the old part of town. These small factories, usually with just one or two people working in there, often quite older people who have been working in essentially the ground floor of their houses for up to 50 years or more in some cases. And I was really struck by the way that life and work intermingle, and the way that industrial machinery, small-scale industrial machinery, was right alongside living environments. And I became very curious about the sound that they produced, and the kind of the intermingling of domestic soundscapes and industrial soundscapes, and the way that plays out in people's lives here in Tainan. So that was kind of the starting point for exploring this topic. I was interested not in kind of really turning the machines on again, but using resonance and vibration to kind of bring them back to life in a different form. I'm quite interested by the connection between the person who worked this machinery for such a long time and the machine itself. I've got this idea that perhaps over these decades of use, something more than just utilitarian happens. A relationship beyond just a utilitarian one kind of forms between the user and the machine. And the idea of resonating the machine is to kind of reanimate something that has been left behind from its history with its own manufacturing. The richest part of that process was the interaction with the factory owners, Jia Gongchang workers. For creating the audio documentary, I spent a lot of time just walking the streets, and as opposed to just listening, which is something I do on a regular basis myself, I intentionally made conversation. I was often with someone who was my wife most of the time, who was helping me to translate, because most of the conversations were happening in Taiwanese, which I don't speak. But we met just so many wonderful people actually walking the streets and chatting, and so many of the people that we met there was this sense of pride in their work, that when we went looking for machines for the space installation, had a few different leads that we followed up and spoke to some Jia Gongchang operators, all of which, even the ones who weren't ultimately able to loan us their equipment, were still extremely warm and generous with their information, with their time. So, ultimately, we found the machines in kind of a store which collects previously used second-hand machines, and yeah, we were lucky to have someone willing to loan us the machines.